Hi everyone, it's E and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking the Disney princesses, and for the art this week, I'm going to be doing a random color type of challenge, I guess, which is why there's opening narration like this at the beginning of the video. So I have chosen color options for different parts of this. So these are skin tone options, these are hair color options, this is lip color options, and these are clothing color options. So what you'll notice is in each category there's several typical options. So these are all like kind of normal Caucasian skin tones. These are some darker skin tone options if we want to, have her be of a different ethnicity. And then these are way out there skin tone options. And I'm going to choose them at random. I would show you that I'm blindfolded or that I'm picking with my eyes closed or something like that. But it's the end of the day and I'm in cozy mode, so I don't really want to show my face. So you'll just have to take my word for it that I'm picking colors at random. You'll see me kind of mix them up as the video goes and as I select them. So that's basically the gist of this video, but I just wanted to give you a preface at the beginning so you understand why I'm doing what I'm doing for picking the colors. And I think it'll be fun because as I'm recording this voiceover right now, I have no idea what colors Miss Cinderella is going to be. I think it's more fun to choose some normal colors and then have some random colors thrown in, because I think that it's fun to have options. And if the whole thing winds up being wacko colors, it may not look like Cinderella. So hopefully some colors are normal and some colors are out there, but we'll just see how we go. And without any further ado, let's just jump into the ranking.
Okay, so let's just jump into this ranking. Each princess is going to be ranked in 5 categories, one being character design, another being personality. She'll be judged based on the prince that she chooses, her sidekick, and then the final category is just my personal preference. So the first princess, of course, was Snow White. She kind of paved the way for Disney princesses and set the standard. So let's get going. Her character design, well, she was rotoscoped, I believe. So that is a animation technique where they film a person and then they draw over it to create more realistic animation. And that really is effective, but sometimes it's occasionally kind of creepy. She has almost like dark rings around her eyes for some reason. I suppose it's supposed to be like eyeshadow, but it looks kind of odd. Her dress design is super iconic and memorable, but the collar and the cape on it are kind of dated. She is really cute and petite, but she's not got an overly exaggerated waist, and she has a precious little squeaky voice. So for character design, I give it a 3 out of 5. For personality, she's super optimistic. She makes the best out of a bad situation. She's trusting. She loves animals, and animals love her. She's hardworking, she's charismatic, she's helpful, but she still stands up for herself. An example of that being when she makes the dwarves wash up before dinner. But she is naive. So I think that, especially for the first Disney princess, she has a lot going on personality-wise. And so I gave her personality a 5 out of 5. Now, personality is not always like, is she the nicest princess? Is she the smartest princess? Or whatever. It's how well fleshed out is her personality and how well does that personality fit in with the Disney princess archetype. And is the way her personality is portrayed match up with how she is received by others in the movie. So that's why she gets a 5 out of 5. Her prince, I don't think he has a name. He's romantic and cute, but there's not much else going on. He doesn't appear in the movie very much. But all the criticism that says like that he was just kissing some random girl in the woods is a little off base, because he and Snow White do know each other and she is in love with him. The sidekicks, she has the housekeeping animals that help her clean up the dwarves' house. Super cute. And the dwarves themselves are really excellent sidekicks. They each have their own fleshed out personalities and they serve a really good purpose in the movie. So I give her sidekick rating a 4 out of 5. For my personal preference, I give Snow White a 2 out of 5. So her total score is 3.4 out of 5. And actually, if you can believe it, she set a pretty high standard for the other princesses to live up to. So the next princess we'll talk about is Cinderella. Her character design, she has multiple outfits and looks. The maid rags are so-so. Her pink dress that used to be her mother's that like the little mice spruced up for her is cute. But her ball gown is amazing. It's silvery sparkliness. And of course it has the glass slippers with it. She's got that little cute black choker. At the end of the movie, her wedding gown is perfect. It's just really gorgeous and simple. I love it. Her eyes are a striking bright blue, but I think that her hair is kind of lumpy looking and sort of unremarkable. So she gets points off for that. So her character design gets a 4 out of 5. Personality, she's resilient. She loves animals in a pretty extreme way, going so far as to make little outfits for them. She's mildly sassy. I think that some people kind of forget that about her, is like she's always muttering under her breath about her stepmother and her stepsisters and rolling her eyes. Like, it's not like she's just totally perfectly compliant with like a good attitude. She does not like her situation and she responds accordingly. But she does mainly seem interested in keeping peace in the house. I would say that her personality doesn't have a ton of depth though. So I give her personality a 3 out of 5. The prince literally says nothing the whole movie, has a boring face, but is a good dancer. So I give him a 2 out of 5. Okay, her sidekicks are some of the best. Her cute little mice and the birds with their precious little outfits that she made for them. And then they have that whole little song about sewing up her dress, and they call her Cinderella. They're awesome. 5 out of 5 sidekicks. And for my personal preference, I give it a 4 out of 5. Of all the Disney princess movies, Cinderella is probably the one I've seen the most. It was my favorite movie as a kid. I always put in Cinderella for myself, like on my old VHS. So she gets a 4 out of 5 for my own personal preference. And that gives her a total overall score of 3.6. Now, I wanted to make some notes about the Cinderella movie because Cinderella is one of the most like iconic Disney stories, and actually just stories in general. Everybody does their own version of a Cinderella story. And there's a lot of criticism, I guess, of Cinderella. So the first criticism is that like Cinderella is just waiting around for a prince to rescue her. So while Cinderella doesn't have a ton of agency, she does have some. She is determined to go to the ball, and the way she does that, she makes a deal with her stepmother, and so she spends all day busting her butt to complete all of her chores, but her sisters in the end sabotage her. And also, I want to say that there's really nothing wrong with needing rescue when you're literally being held hostage. Her belief and hope is ultimately what saves her. You could say it's the fairy godmother that saves her, or this the prince that saves her, but it's really her belief and hope and her resiliency that saves her, because when the fairy godmother appears, she says, "You must still have some faith left, otherwise I wouldn't be here." Secondly, the Cinderella and the prince do kind of have a love at first sight story, so a lot of people kind of criticize them for like getting married immediately and knowing nothing about each other. But the thing is, they spend canonically within this movie 3.5 hours dancing and talking to each other, looking into each other's eyes with nobody else around. I think in 3.5 hours of spending time, intimate time with somebody, you could say you got to know them fairly well. And I think it's realistic to fall in love in that time span. And so I would say that it is love at first sight, definitely, but there is some basis and, undergirding for a strong relationship afterward based on their initial meeting. And also, we don't know how long it is after they find Cinderella that they get married. Okay, the third and biggest kind of critique is that, like, wouldn't the prince recognize her face? What's up with the slipper thing? Okay, the prince would recognize her face after having spent 3.5 hours with her. The glass slipper thing was not the prince's idea. It was his dad's idea. And the dad did not care who his son married, just that his son did get married. All he was concerned with was grandchildren. So here's how the plan came about. The prince said, because he had the glass slipper, "Whoever this glass slipper fits will be my bride." He said that as an offhanded comment. He didn't really mean it. But his dad took it literally and decided to hold his son to that commitment. And he was the one who came up with the plan. Basically, the first foot that this slipper fits on is going to be the girl that my son marries. So he just wanted grandchildren. He didn't really care who it was. And so it wasn't the prince who's like, "I have no idea who this girl was. I wouldn't be able to recognize her face," or whatever. It was the king who made up this whole plot. I think other versions of the Cinderella story get that wrong and mix that up. But those are just me addressing some of the common critiques and problems that people have with Cinderella. I don't think it's a perfect movie or a perfect story by any means, but the things that people say make no sense. When you really watch the movie and pay attention to what happens, they do make sense. But let's move on to Sleeping Beauty. Her character design is actually pretty cool. The whole style of this movie is so distinct and gorgeous when I was rewatching it, because I did rewatch all of the Disney princess movies before making this video. The style of this movie is so like Art Nouveau almost. It's very like geometric. It's awesome. And so to me, Aurora is the princess with probably one of the most angular and sharp features. Like, she has a long kind of sharp face. It's just, I love her face actually. It makes her look really classy and chic. Her peasant dress is just detailed enough. And I like how she goes around barefoot initially. Her princess dress has the cute gimmick of changing from pink to blue because of her fairy friends, Merriweather and Flora, arguing over what color it should be. She is one of the prettier princesses in my opinion, but maybe not quite as memorable. So I give her a 4 out of 5. For personality, the only traits we really know are that she gets along with animals and is a little bit of a hopeless romantic. She cares more about true love than royal status. Because when she initially meets Prince Philip, she doesn't know he's a prince. And likewise, he doesn't know she's the princess. And they are actually betrothed to marry each other. So they fall in love not knowing that they're betrothed to each other. And when Aurora finds out that she is betrothed, she gets upset because she would rather be with the guy that she met in the woods. Again, not knowing that that is the guy that she is betrothed to, actually. But anyway, other than that, she's asleep the whole movie. So I really feel like it's unfair to really rate her personality that high because, like I said, we don't really know that much about her. So I give her a 2 out of 5. Now, the prince, though, you could argue that Prince Philip is actually the protagonist of this movie. He kind of is like a young Harrison Ford. And he also cares more about love than royal status because he had the same opinion of Aurora that she had of him. I think he's a great prince. He's one of the best. I give him a 5 out of 5. For sidekicks, we have Flora, Fauna, and Merriweather. They are so funny and helpful, and they're instrumental to the plot. I love them. 5 out of 5 for them. But for my personal preference, Sleeping Beauty is just not one of my favorite movies. It's not one of my favorite stories. So she gets a 3.6 out of 5 overall because my personal pref was just a 2. The next princess actually is the Little Mermaid, which is Ariel. So you'll kind of notice Sleeping Beauty came out in 1959, and The Little Mermaid didn't come out until, I think, 1989, so it was a 30-year gap between official Disney princesses. For Little Mermaid, her character design, her bright red hair is totally distinguishable. Like, it's one of the, I think, most iconic features of a Disney princess. When you see that bright red fire engine red hair, you're like, okay, that's Ariel. Every time I see a character with bright red hair like that, I think, oh, is that Ariel? And it doesn't matter who that character is. That's just my immediate thought. So I think that that's awesome. But that's basically one of the only things that I like about Ariel. She has one of the most unrealistic tiny waists of any of the Disney princesses. Like, her waist is like probably half the size of her head. And her eyes are also way too big for her face. And I feel like her face is kind of animated weirdly because of it. She looks kind of odd from certain angles, so I only give her character design a 1 out of 5. Personality-wise, she's curious. She has interest in anthropology. She's headstrong and adventurous, which are mostly good traits, but she's way too naive and makes bad choices regularly, which makes her more complex, but also kind of annoying. Some of the quotes from the movie, like where she says, "I'm 16, I'm not a child anymore," and, you know, the time where she says, "But Daddy, I love him." Those things kind of make her less likable. I don't really enjoy her as a person very much. So she gets a 3 out of 5 for personality. Her prince, okay, Eric. He's a little bit of a himbo because he just says and does the dumbest things. Like his whole, like, I'm going to marry the girl who rescued me and no one else. Like, what a weirdo. He won't settle for just anybody. Like, that's part of his personality. Like, at the beginning of the movie, they're complaining that he hasn't gotten married yet and that he needs to find somebody. So he won't marry just anybody. But then when Ursula comes in with Ariel's voice as Vanessa, he's like, okay, I'm going to marry her now, like, and rushes into it. So, like I said, that's just the dumbest thing. He's kind of stupid. So I give him a 3 out of 5. For sidekicks, we've got Sebastian, Flounder, and Scuttle. I really like Sebastian because he sings Kiss the Girl and he's funny. Flounder and Scuttle both annoy me though, so Sidekick score gets a 2 out of 5. And my personal preference, I give it a 2 out of 5. I'm not really that interested in The Little Mermaid. And the movie always scared me as a little kid because the ending is kind of freaky. The overall score for Little Mermaid gets a 2.2 out of 5. Next we've got Beauty and the Beast. That's the next movie in the lineup, and so we're judging Belle now. And I'm going to warn you, this is where things maybe get a little bit unpredictable. And I apologize in advance. I know a lot of people have Belle as their favorite Disney princess, but spoiler alert, she is not one of mine. So character design, she's very average to me. She's boring and has flat hair. It doesn't look voluminous at all. I think her face looks swollen from below her eyes. Like her face looks puffy, like she got stung by a beast. I think her face is animated in a kind of ugly way. She's like very generic Disney princess to me. Like, I just like just her face. Her costumes are some of the best, however, and are very memorable. Like Belle in the blue dress, Belle in her yellow ball gown, Belle in the green dress that she wears around the castle, Belle in that, burgundy winter outfit with the fur collar. Like, her outfits are iconic. So I'm going to give her character design a 2 out of 5, and both of those 2 points are for her clothes. Okay, personality. Okay, again, this is where I'm probably going to offend some people who like Belle. I honestly think she's a snob. She looks down on her neighbors for living a simple life. Really, that's all it is. It's not that they're dumb people per se. They're just simple. They're happy to go about their lives doing their jobs, and they're content with that. She's discontented. The other thing is she talks about wanting adventure all the time, but she never goes anywhere or does anything. She just reads about it. And the thing is, like, you can say, oh, well, that's a product of her time. But the thing is, she lives with her father, Maurice, who doesn't seem to hold any of those old sexist opinions. If she wanted to take Philippe to go ride off in the forest, he would probably let her. And we never find out because it seems like she never tries. She's more stubborn than she is strong-willed. So, for example, when she's in the Beast Castle, she goes into the West Wing after Lumiere and Cogsworth ask her not to. If she had gone into the West Wing after Beast asked her not to, I wouldn't fault her so much for it because the Beast has been nothing but nasty to her, so why would she do anything that he says? But Cogsworth and Lumiere, up to that point, were the only people, like, really making her stay in the castle enjoyable. So them asking her not to go into the West Wing, like, she should have listened to them out of courtesy to them, but she didn't. She just did it anyway, and for no particular reason, except for that she just wanted to know and was being nosy. She's more concerned with personality than looks, which is a good thing. But I find it kind of hypocritical that she's willing to give the Beast a chance after seeing how outwardly violent he was, and not Gaston. Like, she doesn't give him any chances. Of course, at the end of the movie, she turns out to be kind of correct in her assessment that the Beast was redeemable and Gaston was not. But at the beginning of the movie, we don't know that. And the thing is, Beast is pretty much abusive to her, so there's that. Like, Gaston is rude to her and is oppressive in that, like, he's a sexist. But, like, the Beast is, like, literally holding her captive, and even when she escapes and he saves her from the wolves, that's kind of just plays into his hand of, like, you can't go anywhere without me. You need me, so you have to stay in. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Anyway. Also, I do kind of I do judge Belle for falling in love with the Beast. Like, he's literally a beast. And she doesn't know that he's a cursed man. She doesn't know that he used to be a human. Like, she thinks that this is just some big beast man, and she's in love with him. That's weird. It's kind of freaky. Like, it's not just like he's an ugly guy. He's like she doesn't even know that he's human. To her, he's a whole nother species. That's a little peculiar. So I give her personality a 2 out of 5. The points she gets for her personality are really just based around, I guess, her general virtue of caring more about personality than looks and liking to read. The prince... Okay, Beast is ugly both before and after his transformation, but he has the most interesting and well-developed personality of any prince thus far in the official Disney princess lineup. But his temper and the fact that he imprisons Belle, and he's basically rewarded for it, That's kind of creepy. I give him a 2 out of 5. The Sidekicks, they sing great songs. Be Our Guest and Beauty and the Beast are sung by the Flatware. So I give the Sidekicks a 4 out of 5. And as far as my personal preference, I feel like you can probably tell I don't like Belle very much at all. So I give that a 1 out of 5. And so her total score is a 2.2 out of 5. Next up is Jasmine from Aladdin. I think character design wise, she's probably one of the worst examples of giant eyes and tiny waist syndrome. Her hairstyle is voluminous and recognizable, and her outfit is also unique in that she doesn't wear a dress, but yet she still looks really regal in what she's got on, so I give her 3 out of 5. Personality, she's not the protagonist of this movie, unlike most of the other Disney princess movies, but she's still got some personality. She's independent, and she cares more about personality than status, because she's not interested in any of the princes that she meets, and she wishes she could just marry for love. She's clever and strategic, helping Aladdin out on multiple occasions. She enjoys adventure, and unlike Belle, she actually does something about it, leaves the palace and goes out and finds it. And she wants to broaden her horizons and experiences and see the world. So I actually give her personality a 5 out of 5. I really like Jasmine. Okay, the prince, we've got Aladdin. He's the protagonist of this movie, so he's pretty well fleshed out. He's a bit of a liar, though, but he does learn his lesson by the end of the movie. He kind of takes the cake as the most unique-looking prince at this point because, you know, he's not white. And like I said, he's pretty fleshed out and actually pretty likable, so I give him a 4 out of 5. Jasmine's sidekick is Raja. See, Aladdin has a really cool sidekick because he's got the genie and he's got a boo. And so, like, if we were basing it on Aladdin's sidekicks, this would be a higher score. But Raja, while he's a tiger and that's really cool, he's not got really a lot of personality going on. So I give him a 2 out of 5. And for my personal preference, I give Jasmine a 3 out of 5. So her overall score is a 3.4 out of 5. Next is Pocahontas. For character design, she's got the amazing flowy hair and the high cheekbones, and like Aurora, she's got angular features, but kind of in a different direction. Instead of her having a long and angular face, she's got kind of a square and angular face, which I love personally. Her eye size is realistic, thank God, and she's also not overly skinny. So I give Pocahontas a 4 out of 5 for character design, just because I feel like her outfit's a little bit simple, which is good because it fits the movie, but in terms of like merchandising and stuff like that, I imagine it makes her dolls less popular. Personality, she is free and fun-loving. She's in touch with nature, obviously. She respects her father, but is also respected by her father. Like, Ariel talks to her father and gets rejected and is basically told off. And that happens to most of the princesses when they try to approach their fathers or mothers about changing things. But I feel like Pocahontas' father actually does listen to and respect her. She's really compassionate and willing to give people a chance. She's brave. She's really got no flaws, so there's not as much depth as I may like, but overall she's a very dignified and wise princess, so I give her a 4 out of 5 for personality. Her prince, John Smith, is handsome and adventurous, but he has a body count unlike most of the other Disney princes. He has a history of participating in genocide for no reason other than his own entertainment, because like you can tell from this movie, he's not really interested in colonizing. He's just looking for adventure, and if adventure involves killing native populations, then he'll do that without thinking about it. Sure, he learns his lesson, kind of, and sacrifices himself for Pocahontas' father, but is that enough to redeem all the other people, you know, that he's killed? I think not. So I give John Smith a 2 out of 5. Sidekicks, Miko and Flit, they're cute and funny, but they don't really add much to the story, so I give them a 2 out of 5. And for personal preference, I give Pocahontas also a 2 out of 5. It's not my favorite movie, and she's not my favorite princess, but she is very pretty and strong. So her overall score is a 2.8. Next, we've got Mulan, and I guess Mulan, like, principally, I have some issues with because she's not actually a princess, nor does she become a princess, but Disney princesses don't necessarily have to be royal to be a princess. Like, Pocahontas is not a princess per se, but she is the daughter of the chief, which makes her kind of a princess. So there's kind of a royal status there. Mulan has no royal status, but she's a princess, so we're judging her. For character design, okay, there's no consistency in Mulan's face. Her jawline, like actually the way they draw her jawline changes shape when she masquerades as a man. And I would have preferred that her jaw stay sharp at all times. Like, it just doesn't really make any sense. Why does her entire face change shape? It's stupid. She does look different from other princesses, and she's well proportioned. I like her thick eyebrows, but none of her outfits are particularly memorable or special. And I feel like because of the jawline issue, that's really affected her. So I give her a 1 out of 5 for character design. Personality-wise, she's very relatable. I feel like we all at times feel like a disappointment or that we have no direction in life and that we need to prove ourselves somehow. She's kind of a klutz and a failure, but she has her own unique way of doing things, which is really cool. And she doesn't have a lot of talents per se, but she works really hard. So overall, personality-wise, I feel like because she's so real to me, I give her a 4 out of 5. The prince, we're talking about Li Shang. He's like the son of the general. Again, not really a noble per se, but at least marrying him would give her some sort of status. So I guess whatever. He's kind of a sexist jerk at first. He humbles himself eventually, and he's very pretty. So I give him a 3 out of 5. Sidekick, we've got Mushu and the Lucky Cricket. The Cricket is okay, but Mushu, voiced by Eddie Murphy, is actually pretty funny and helpful, so I give her Sidekick score a 4 out of 5. And as far as personal preference, she gets a 1 out of 5. I'm just not that interested in Mulan. I never really liked the movie that much, so we get a 2.6 out of 5 for Mulan overall. Moving on to Tiana. Character design, while she does spend most of the movie as a frog, when she is a human, she has several great outfits, culminating in her wedding gown and then like the 1920s like flapper looking outfit that she wears at her restaurant, which they're all just beautiful and iconic. Her eyes are a little too big for her face, but I like the way her face is shaped. It's not just a circle, like it's not totally round, but it is round and sweet looking. So I give her character design a 4 out of 5. Personality, she is funny and clever and hardworking, yet somewhere deep inside, she still believes in dreaming and wishing. She is hospitality focused and she's friendly. She doesn't take the easy way out. She can have fun, she just needs some help in that regard. Learning that working away your life, you'll miss time with your loved ones. So I give her personality a 5 out of 5. The prince, we've got Naveen. He is so handsome and well designed, but he needs to realize that his money and his privilege make his problems seem kind of trivial compared to Tiana's. At one point, he kind of complains that he never learned to do anything for himself, but he had the power and ability to change that the whole time, but he does eventually learn the value of hard work by the end of the movie. So I give Naveen a 3 out of 5. Sidekicks, we have Louis the Gator and Ray the Firefly. They're funny and well animated, and they provide some great music, but they're not very cute, so they get a 3 out of 5. For personal preference, I love Tiana. She is awesome, and like I feel kind of nostalgic, like I don't know, sentimental connection to Tiana because I've met her quote unquote in person at Walt Disney World before, and she's just so sweet, like the way that they portray her there. I love her. So my personal preference is a 5 out of 5. I love Tiana, so that gives her an overall score of 4 out of 5. Next up we have Rapunzel from Tangled. For character design, I love her dress, the little purple one, little midi length skirt. She's got the shiny golden hair and freckles. I like that she kind of has big front teeth. And I even like her little choppy brunette hairstyle at the end of the movie. However, she has like a giant bobblehead and alien eyeballs compared to Flynn Rider, who is her deuteragonist. Like, he has normal human proportions, and Rapunzel almost looks like she's in a different art style than him. So her character design gets a 3 out of 5. Personality, she makes the best out of a bad situation, definitely. She's naive, but kind of what can you expect? She's never left her tower before. She's brave, of course, but also clever and cunning. She's also vulnerable and honest. And I would say she also stands up to her abusive mother figure, so that's really cool. I think that like the complexity of her loving her mother but also hating her mother makes her personality and makes her backstory very rich. So I give her personality a 5 out of 5. The prince, okay, I'm talking about Eugene Fitzherbert here, or Flynn Rider, whatever you want to call him. He is the deuteragonist of the movie and also the narrator of the movie, so he plays a really integral role. He's really fleshed out with his own backstory and everything. He's a thief, which is bad, but he's also vulnerable and kind of learns his lesson on those things. And he is so good looking. Like, they really knocked it out of the park designing this guy. So I give Flynn Rider a 5 out of 5. He's very complex, and I like that. Sidekicks. We're talking about Pascal and Maximus. Pascal is cute, but he's mostly useless, except for when he sends Mother Gothel out the window. And Max is a little bit overpowered, I think. And I personally hate horses, like in real life. So I give her sidekick score a 3 out of 5. For my personal preference, likewise, I really just love Tangled and I love Rapunzel. So my personal preference, I give it a 5 out of 5. And so that gives her an overall score of 4.2 out of 5. Next up, we have Merida from Brave. Her character design, I feel like she has an oddly proportioned face. Her head is quite wide with far set apart eyes. She kind of reminds me of Hey Arnold, but she has this tiny, tiny little button nose. Her hair is so cool. Like, I love her hair. It's so bouncy and like the light hits it in such a cool way. But I feel like her dresses, while well rendered texture-wise, are not super distinct. I mean, it's not surprising that texture-wise, she's one of my favorite princesses, like in terms of like just the animation quality there, because this is the first Pixar Disney princess. But like the actual design itself, not so much. Personality-wise, she is one of the more complex Disney princesses. She's stubborn, headstrong, tomboyish, independent, athletic, fun-loving, and adventurous. But she is too stubborn at times, and she won't admit that she's wrong in any way until the end of the movie. But to me, this is actually a good thing because it makes her more interesting and not the quote-unquote perfect princess type. And her flaws don't make her less likable. So I give her personality a 5 out of 5. Part of the point of the movie is that she doesn't have a prince, so I'm not going to give any scores for that. I could like give her a score based on the fact that she chooses not to have a prince, but that's a little bit too meta, so I'm just not going to give that score for that. Sidekick, who is her sidekick? Is it her mom? Is it her horse Angus? Is it her little brothers? I don't know. The story is really weird, so I give her sidekick score a 1 out of 5. And as far as personal preference, I don't like this movie at all, really. I don't like Brave. Like, I think it's good. It's probably quality-wise one of the better Disney princess movies, but I just personally don't care for it. But if we're talking about Merida specifically, there's a lot to love, her voice being one of those things. So I give my personal preference a 3 out of 5, and Merida ends up with a score of 2.75. And finally, we have the most recent addition to the official Disney princess lineup, Moana. Character design, yay. We finally have some good body proportions of a princess. Like, Merida wasn't bad, but Moana is peak for me. She is muscular looking. I wish Merida had been more muscular looking because Merida was like out like climbing rock faces and stuff. But like Moana has muscles and she's like thick and heavy and looks grounded. I love that. Her hair is also distinctive. It's kind of frizzy, but it's not ugly. I love that. Her eyebrows are super expressive. Her outfit is complex but recognizable, and the heart of Tafiti makes a great accessory / plot device as well. However, I will say she does give off some of the least princessy vibes of all of the official Disney princesses, except for when she wears like the ceremonial like wreaths and headdresses. So I give her character design a 4 out of 5. Personality wise, she is very similar to a lot of other kind of strong-willed Disney princesses. She is nice and compassionate, yet she's adventurous. She's very logical in a sense. She's loyal to her people and she's loyal to her father, but she realizes that she has to compromise one of those things in order to serve her village. And she ultimately chooses to kind of compromise her obedience to her father in order to serve her people. She is spunky and plucky and determined and mildly rebellious and fairly wise and a good leader. And there's some of those opening scenes we see her helping out the villagers, and we see that she's, like I said, very compassionate but very smart and makes good decisions. So I give her personality a 4 out of 5. Again, no prince, so no score. Sidekicks, we've got Hey Hey and Pua. I don't think they're great. Actually, I really don't care for them at all. They don't serve the story at all and are just there to make plushes of, basically. But Moana, if you count Maui as a sidekick, Maui is like awesome. And I love Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So points off for Hehe and Pua, but points on for Maui gives the sidekick score a 3 out of 5. As far as my personal preference, I also give her a 3 out of 5. She's not one of my favorite princesses, but like I think her movie is one of the best ones. It's got the best songs. So Moana's overall score is a 3.5 out of 5. So that is all of the princesses in chronological order. You'll notice that Frozen is not on here. Thankfully, Frozen is its own franchise, and Anna and Elsa are not considered official Disney princesses. I'm personally thankful for that because I don't really care for Frozen or Frozen 2, and I wouldn't have wanted to rewatch them. But I will say I wouldn't have rewatched Frozen 2 anyway because all of my rankings were based on the first installment of the animated princess movies. I did not watch any live actions and I didn't watch any sequels. We're just going off of the first movies. So let's get into the actual ranking. I gave you all the scores. If you were writing them down, I guess you could have organized them, but I will do that for you now. In the 12th spot with a score of 2.2, we have Belle. As I said, I just don't like her. In 11th place, we have Ariel. She also has a score of 2.2, but I rank her above Belle because I like her a little bit more. And just a quick note about Ariel and Belle, like watching them one right after the other. Belle kind of pitches herself as an intellectual, but she basically reads nothing but fiction and she reads the same books over and over again. We're talking about intellectualism. Ariel is basically curating a museum of human trinkets, and when she gets a trinket, she doesn't just stick it in her collection and look at it and think, wow, it's so shiny and pretty. She goes to the little, seagull guy, and she tries to find out more about what the thing is. He gives her bad intel, but she learns each item and like remembers it, and she's very curious and intellectual in that regard. So if we're talking intellectual princesses, to me Ariel is one of the most intellectual princesses. She's a huge nerd for human culture. And yeah, she falls in love with Eric and that motivates her somewhat to become a human, but she was already wanting to be a human before then to learn more about human culture. So that's all I'll say about that. In 10th spot, we have Mulan with a score of 2.6. In the 9th spot, we have Merida with a score of 2.75. In the 8th spot, we have Pocahontas with a score of 2.8. In the 7th spot, we have Jasmine with a score of 3.4. In 6th place, we have Snow White, also with a score of 3.4. I really could interchange Jasmine and Snow White at any point in time. In 5th place, we have Moana with a score of 3.5. In 4th place, we have Aurora with a score of 3.6. And honestly, this kind of surprised me because, like I said, she spends the whole movie asleep, but her character design and sidekicks and stuff like that and her prints are just so good that it kind of outweighs the fact that she doesn't have much of a personality in and of herself. In 3rd place, we have Cinderella with a score of 3.6 as well. I bumped her above Aurora because she spends the movie awake. In 2nd place, we have Tiana with a score of 4. And in 1st place, we have Rapunzel with a score of 4.2. And that is my ranking of the Disney princesses. My top 3, Cinderella, Tiana, and Rapunzel, which doesn't surprise me at all. Those are my favorite Disney princesses. I tried to be unbiased when making this list, but obviously it's impossible to be completely neutral on these things because you grow up with these movies and you love these movies, and yeah. So those are my ranking of the Disney princesses. It's a definitive ranking, but if you have disagreements, please let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, I think I should mention how the art piece turned out. So we have a green-skinned, purple-haired Cinderella, and I hope you enjoyed watching me despairingly pick new colors and watch the piece get slowly more crazy looking as we went on. But anyway, that's all for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I will see you in the next one. Bye!